Okay, so today, guys, we are back with Punt or No Punt, and we have a 500 Zoom edition today. And obviously, for a 500 Zoom edition, we're going to need a 500 Zoom player. And luckily, we have one in Ben Raven, aka BenaBadBeat, on PokerStars. Ben, how are you doing today?
Good, mate. Looking
I'm
forward to this one actually a
perfect.
lot.
You excited to play Punt or No Punt?
Yes.
That sounds like a reluctant yes, but we'll move along. If you haven't seen mine and Ben's video already from last week, we did a much more formal hand review where we talk about 4 of Ben's hands from 500 Zoom. I'll leave a link in the description, and also you'll be able to check out a little annotation box, hopefully, if I manage to get that right, in the corner as well. So if you're new to Punt or No Punt, these are the rules. Basically, we'll have a contestant on the show. Today it's Ben, and they will bring with them 5 hands. We will decide whether each of those hands is a punt or not a punt. The one rule is that I am not allowed to see these hands before we play the game. Ben, can you confirm that this is the case?
This is the case.
Perfect. And this is the time that I will allow you to say anything that you'd like to say in your defense before we begin looking at your play.
Yeah, some of these are really bad.
Okay.
And I'd like to say not indicative of my overall play, even though they do exist and they did happen within the past 3 weeks.
Okay.
So make of that what you will. But I'm looking forward to hearing your analysis on these.
Perfect.
And I'm not sure anyone's going to be able to analyze these ones.
Okay. My own disclaimer, I'm obviously not a 500 Zoom player. I don't run the most solves in the world, but I'm going to do my very best. Obviously, not having seen these hands before, I'm putting myself, right in front of the firing line here. So I'm hoping that I can hold my own. But Ben, I'm hoping, will also carry me through. We're obviously going to ask Ben a lot of questions about why he's doing what he's doing, because I know that you guys want to hear that. But I will be making the decisions, and hopefully Ben is able to pull out ahead in the end. We will see how generous I am feeling. Without further ado, we have Ace Queen offsuit in the big blind. Let's go. Okay, so as I said, our first hand is Ace Queen offsuit, and it looks like a villain under the gun is opening with a short stack. Now, at my games, Ben, and I'm probably sure at your games as well, if someone has a short stack, we're assuming that they are fish/whale. Is that true?
Yeah, both the under the gun and the small blind are both pretty massive recreationals, actually.
Okay.
Under the gun's running I've got them here, 40, 31, 21. And the small blind's running 55, 18, 0.
Is that over a big sample?
Yeah, the guy under the gun has over 286 hands with a 55 one-man soft flop, a 48 one at showdown, and a 34 went to showdown. So very, very stationary.
Fantastic.
And bluffy.
And I guess this guy's coming along. He is. So obviously, assumptions are the same pretty much when people are shouting with less than 4. And we have a third whale entering the pot here in the big blind.
This one's okay so far. I can pass this one off as okay.
So sizing, nothing to mention there. I generally would go like to 14, but I'm going to let you get away with this one, I think, as we move on.
Cool.
And so the small blind whale folds, but the under the gun does call. Now, already I'm starting to feel a bit uneasy because, like, in my experience and what my general strategy is to bluff a lot less against this kind of player because they're generally very, very sticky.
Sure.
Now, obviously, having a wider range means he's going to have a lot more 9s and 8s than most people would, but he's still not going to fold even like very, very often. But in that sense, are you happy to bet Ace Queen knowing that he's just going to float a whole bunch of rubbish, or what are you thinking when you see this flop? My thoughts are, I've missed. This guy's not folding enough. I'm going to give up.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I think on the 8-9x, it's just not a very good board. And we're not really going to generate many folds from better hands by betting. So I think just checking is better, but it depends what we want to do versus a bet, I guess.
Okay. So as played, we do check. And this is the check to give up?
Well, it's a punt or no punt, so probably not.
All right. At least you're in the spirit of the game. And he starts small. So obviously this is like a weird one. This could just be like, I mean, it's hard to say it's a protection bet because he probably doesn't understand what that means.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts versus this sizing? Do you think it's indicative of weakness and you want to apply some pressure, or do you think you just want to see a turn card for this price?
Yeah, I think mainly the last bit is like, if he has pocket 3s here, we just have a plus EV call. So I'll just call, I guess. So yeah.
Fair enough. It seems like so far I'm pretty much doing, I'm doing the same thing. So Ben, so far I approve. The 6 I'm doing a lot of check folding on.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben.
I can't quite see. Is that 20 into 42?
That's 22. Very, very popular sizing on the channel. 22 into 47.
Yeah.
And so this is where if the person I'm talking to is not BenaBadBeat, I say we have a pretty clear fold here.
I mean, I don't think I'm going to necessarily disagree with you all that
Right.
much.
Okay.
But I mean, like now, like if we do assume that he might bet pocket threes on the flop and we have a call, I think when he bets this sizing on the turn, we kind of can discount pocket threes.
Okay.
So I think that we're kind of now in the like, and same with hand like 6-7 or something like that. So we're now kind of in the region of like flush draws and like over pairs, which may well fall bet pre-flop. He's got a 4% fold to 3-bet. I don't know about his 4-bet.
Right.
4%.
Um,
Yeah, and like, I mean, if we're assuming that flush draws are a big part of his range, we beat those. Obviously, we block Queen Jack and Queen 10, which isn't ideal, but we do unblock Jack 10 as well. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
If I haven't got hearts, yeah, I decide to call.
Do you think this player would do a? Do you think this player would do a lot of like betting with like one pair hands here, like 10-9?
I don't know, and this is why it's kind of I brought his hand, because I guess we can all just kind of speculate because we don't know for sure. I honestly I don't know, but I mean, like he's bet like half pot. He could have some like draws. He also probably doesn't bet one pair. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Particularly like an under pair. The only problem is that like our visibility is very, very poor in that the board is extremely dynamic and we have nothing.
Right. What other hands are you going to have here that check call and then check call here that are better than this?
None.
Really?
I'm completely imbalanced here when it's against the recreational.
Right, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
But so you don't have like super good hands here at all?
No,
right.
Never.
Because you're going to be value betting a bunch.
Yeah, I'd probably, if I like, for example, if I threw it pre and we've seen this flop, if I have kings, I'm just going to go 2/3 pot. And if I have pocket nines, I'm going to bet 1/3 pot.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, super face up.
So we don't, obviously we're completely fine with being unbalanced, but I just wondered if, you know. So yeah. in a way also, it doesn't matter if you fold here, knowing that, because he doesn't know that you don't have like very many good hands here. So
yeah, exactly.
We can just fold here, even though we're probably at the top of our range somehow. So
yeah.
We call, and I think this is a mistake. I said it. There you go.
Okay, sure.
We check.
Good river though.
Yeah, a good river if we're, you know, I mean, if we're calling in turn, kind of feels like we have to call river.
Is what you're saying that this is a no punt?
Well, bear with me. I've got a lot. So here's another thing.
Yeah.
Do I expect? And I know I've spoken to you about this off camera before, but do I expect, even a player this bad to bluff shove for a half pot sizing? It just doesn't feel like, especially recreational players would use this sizing as a bluff, or they would generally give up here because they don't think they're going to garner enough folds with this size. Like a bigger size feels much more impactful. Oh God, is he really going to fold anything he called on the turn with here for 45 more into 91? I think even very bad players are going to be, the very first level of thinking. So I don't generally think that we're going to see him be bluffing here all that much from my experience with whales, but this guy seems like an even bigger whale than I've ever seen. So
well, that's the point, isn't it? Really, like we obviously have different like recreational classes.
Yeah.
And like this one particularly, like I don't know if you used one soft flop and went and $1. So one soft flop and won at showdown, but like his stats are like 55 1 soft flop, so that means he's winning pots by like a non-showdown 55% of the time, and then like at showdown when he shows his hand, he's only winning 46%. So he's clearly like going to be one of the bluff heavy types of recreational, as opposed to one who's running like 26-18, and obviously we're just like torching here.
And do you think those samples are super relevant over a couple hundred hands, or would you rather have? Obviously, you'd rather have more, but like I'm very wary about using extra stats other than the very basic ones when I've got smaller samples, which I would consider 200-ish to be. So are you concerned about that at all, or do you?
For 300 hands with a recreational, I think that's pretty much as good a sample you're ever going to have on a recreational, I think. Okay. But anyway, like I think that it's kind of up to you now where you want to place this.
So I guess we call for the same reasons that we call the turn, we're calling river. I do think that if our opponent was bluffing on the turn, which I think is reasonable, he would shut down a bunch with this SPR on the river. That's my thinking. And I definitely like pre. I definitely think flop is fine. I don't like turn. I like river less. So
do you give a ranking before you show the hand, the results?
I never look at the results. I try to. Sometimes I click because I get trigger happy. But
Okay.
I always, and I'm going to be very conscious about it today. Will always give my verdict before I see the result.
Great.
And I can do this. Ben, this is a punt.
I'm not overly surprised that this is the result.
Right. I'm going with punt purely
Okay.
because of my reasons for the SBR on the river. I mean, this guy could be such a gigantic whale that, I mean, I do see it sometimes. I just don't think it's going to be super often. This guy
Sure.
is going to have, like, obviously fold to, to 3-bet is super, super low. He's going to have a bunch of 8s that people aren't going to have. He's going to have a bunch of, like, he could even be betting 9x here. I don't know.
Yeah, fair.
So I'm very concerned about that situation. So I'm going with punt.
Okay.
And we get shown the 9-8. So I mean, that's actually quite a reasonable hand for him to have.
It is, yeah.
But what do you think? Like, have you got any final thoughts on this hand? Like, do you just feel like the biggest boob in the world, or do you think that you've got some?
I actually stand by my call down.
Really? Okay.
Only on this particular river.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah,
this river is
I think it can
pretty
definitely be classed as a punt, and probably could only be classed as a punt though. I agree. Whether
Okay.
or not I win. Yeah.
So Ben, you're down 1-0, and
Yeah.
from what you've told me about the rest of these hands, you're going to struggle to get back in the game.
Yes, I am.
But I'm, I can see where you're coming from with this one. I just think that player type and SPR, and I think we're going with punt, but
Sure.
certainly not like an absolute blast off, because we know this type of player is going to show up with some crap a whole bunch of the time. But I just feel like we can probably choose a different hand. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's hard for us to have different hands here when we take this line. But like you said, it doesn't matter because he doesn't know that. So,
yeah, exactly.
All right. Punt. 1-0 to the punts. And let's go and take hand number 2. So 1-0 down, and we've got pocket 9s in the small blind. We're four-handed, which, as we've already said in our last video, is happening quite often, Ben. And we make our standard raise to the 3 big blinds. And do you have anything to say about villain before we continue?
A reg who plays 500 zoom quite a lot is on the splashy side.
Okay. Splashy side. 3-bet. And does this feature as a 4-bet at all at any frequency?
Infrequently, but occasionally, yeah.
Okay. This time we call, which seems pretty good. Obviously a pretty good board for big blind.
Yes, very good board for big blind.
But we're going to have pocket 5s and pocket 6s. Do they ever have those?
Yeah, they will have them sometimes, and they'll have obviously 5-6 suited as much as we will.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, we'll have it more because they won't 3-bet as much, and we'll defend it nearly always.
And we always have 6s and 5s?
Yeah, but then they have like the king 6 off advantage and 5-6 off advantage sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah, and they have a bunch of obviously very strong kings.
Yeah.
Which we don't. And he starts with a small bet. I can't see any reason to do anything but call, so we won't spend too much time on the spot. Yeah. So glad you didn't check raise. Turn is a 10 of hearts.
Yeah.
And you check, and he checks behind. Okay. So when he checks behind, like, obviously he's going to be a lot more balanced than what I'm used to. So what are you thinking about his check there? Like, what kind of hands do you expect him to always bet, or bet a lot? Are you ruling anything out at this point?
I'm ruling out like weaker middling top pairs, hands like king, queen, king, jack. Okay. I'm definitely not ruling out. I think hands most likely are like hands that have turned a 10.
Okay.
I'm kind of in two minds with hands like ace queen and ace jack. I think that they probably want to mix because ace queen is obviously ahead of quite a lot of my hands still, like 7-8. I didn't choose check raise. My ace jack with a backdoor flush draw type hands as well. Okay. Like ace jack offsuit, for example. So ace queen, I think he's going to bet ace jack quite a lot of the time on the turn as well. And then obviously going to check hands like 6-7 pocket 8s and those kind of things as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Very reasonable. And we check, and our opponent goes for half pots. Okay. So I have to get my 500 zoom cap on, which I've never actually gotten out of my closet before. I'm not even sure it exists. But obviously when I see this bet, this is like generally not a bet you see as a bluff at my stakes. Now, it obviously doesn't matter here because our opponent's going to be very, very balanced. So what are the properties of our hand that I like if we're going to call? I don't know if we're calling or not. maybe I should play your action first, but
No, 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 no. I like this.
yeah,
This is
okay,
good.
okay. So
Well, obviously we have three options. I haven't folded, so
yeah,
I've either call or raised.
so yeah, I think that my problem is, um, my main concern is that the 9 of hearts feels like a card that he would probably barrel a bunch on the turn. So having that, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah.
So is he going to have a little bit more like weak King X, or a little bit more value here? I'd expect obviously him to bet his super strong hands. This feels like thin value. Obviously, it looks a lot like thin value, but he's going to have to use this sizing with a lot of his stronger hands as well. But how many of his stronger hands really want to check turn?
Yeah.
On this board texture, I don't know if there's many that do want to do so. Like maybe pocket kings, but even then, I feel like it's meriting a bet more often than not.
Yeah.
Maybe king 10 with the king of hearts, kings with the king of hearts, stuff like that. But I think a lot of the time, if you're going to bet the turn, like if let me think about this a little bit more. This is why going in dark is super hard. But
yeah, it's good
I think
though. It's hard to figure
I think
out.
that if he was going to have like, I mean, obviously we're blocking the nuts, which is great. So it's just a matter of whether I think we need to call or raise. And I don't think I mind either. I think obviously blocking the nuts is brilliant. I think we're probably in a situation where we're going to mix between the two if we're you. Is that fair? Or not really?
Yeah, I think that is fair. But I think the mixing is going to in some way be kind of determined based on his bet sizing.
Right.
I think I don't know about what you think here, but I feel like half pot in position here is a really unconventional size. I don't know what half pot does here, unless he's got like many sizes. And to be honest with you, this is a player who definitely doesn't play a simplified 1 or 2 sizing strategy. Like half pot, like what does half pot accomplish here? Like surely like ace 10 can bet 2/3 here if it wants to bet.
Yeah.
Or surely pocket kings, I kind of agree, like pocket kings is one of the hands that makes sense to kind of go small. But like again, there's no more streets to come, and he gains his value here by betting.
Yeah.
Unless he's trying to make me spaz out versus a small bet, which I guess is a kind of thing that some people do, but that happens less and less frequently nowadays. People trying to bet a size that makes you do certain things.
Yeah, I think that this is the kind of bet I expect to see from a weak king, like quite often. And we do block some weak kings, which I assume will 3-bet.
Well, the suited varieties not so much, but the offsuit varieties, yeah.
Okay. And obviously we block a lot of offsuit varieties. So I don't know. Like I think my main consideration is that I expect him to bet the turn a bunch with his strong hands, and I expect him to bet the turn a bunch with like, I mean, obviously we block 9-8, but with 9-8 because the board's going to be quite good for him quite often, and he has 9 high, and he does have some, equity when called, and obviously some fold equity. So I think that's a hand he would for sure bet. So I don't ever think he has 9-8 here too much.
I agree. I definitely agree with you. Like 100%. He's the kind of player who's very barrel happy as well. So we'll just bet those hands.
So I think having nines here serves pretty well as a bluff versus a weak king, but that's in like a micro stakes vacuum of this is pretty much like weak king a lot, and we block some very strong hands. So I think I prefer raised to call.
Okay,
let's go.
So I just wanted to say the reason I shoved is because actually I agree with your well, as you've just put it, micro stakes logic of sizing, because I think that he's just given me so much fold equity here. When he bets big, my fold equity is just significantly reduced. And I think my sense here, they tanked on the river. In fact, I don't want to say what happened. But it seems like a kind of a size of like a holding as opposed to kind of like an overall accommodating of betting the range that they want to bet. That's what it felt like to me anyway.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we're gonna have pretty like quite a lot of happy value bets here for jams. Like we're gonna have fives, we're gonna have sixes, we're gonna have sevens. Are you gonna jam stuff like 6-5?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
Just
So
to just to say that this
yeah,
is, I'm almost certain that this isn't a shove in theory. I think it's a call in theory. Versus with
right.
my pot odds are incredible. Half pot and calling like 13 big blinds to win like what, like 50 or something.
Yeah.
It almost definitely a clear call, but I've kind of gone like the exploit route and just like using the good prices increased fold equity for me.
I think that I'm a big fan of this.
Great, no pun.
And no, I'm going to go with no punt. Obviously, we
Awesome.
haven't seen the result, so no punt for me because I think that yeah, like we've said, a lot of his strong hands are going to want to bet turn.
Mm,
He's going to have to, he's going to have king 10 and king sometimes, and that's probably what we're going to get looked up by if we do get
yeah,
called. Um,
sure.
and if he calls, I kind of like king 8 and king 9 because we are representing those hands, or king 6 and king 5 seem really good.
Yeah,
If he checked the back, so
yeah.
at least at some frequency he's for sure going to bet those hands on the turn. Like so, um, I think this is good. Let's see what
Cool.
happens. We get the fold, and this is not a punt. I think this is not a punt.
Awesome. 1-1.
I think this is just a great combo versus. I mean, from my stakes for sure, like this is going to just generate the most folds ever. But I also think that even if you're like, I mean, it's just a very good combo of hands to have because I just don't think he's ever going to have 9-8, and I don't think that he's going to have enough of the time strong hands to call in this spot.
Yeah, to be honest with you, like if he is playing well and he is using this sizing correctly, then this shove's terrible.
Yeah.
Because like we need to be blocking like a river 2 pair or a river set more than we need to be blocking a river straight here. As you said, he bets 8-9 on the turn.
Yeah.
So having a non-pair on the board blocker is a really terrible idea to bluff. So we definitely would rather have mainly a 7. A river 7 is probably the most significant card to decide to bluff here.
So maybe like 8-7.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. I'm going with no punt, so it's 1-1.
Right, cool.
That seems pretty reasonable to me. We'll move on to hand number 3. Okay, so it's 1-1, and we have King Jack offsuit on the small blind. We're opening to 3 big blinds, and we get 3-bet. Ben, any notes here on any 4-bet frequencies?
Get a 4-bet sometimes and call most of the time.
Okay, and any notes on villain?
So Villain is a UK reg, has been playing a lot of 500 Zoom recently.
Okay.
I kind of think, I know I've met them in real life, I know them, but they kind of like play on other sites, then come back to Stars, then go somewhere else and come back to Stars. So I haven't played with them for a good number of years, I'd say 2 years maybe.
Okay, so the stats we have may not be relevant or...
Yeah.
Okay, so we're pretty much just playing theory here, I suppose. We don't have any reads at all,
yeah,
I suppose. So we call, which is obviously very reasonable, and we see ace jack deuce, which I think is obviously a check, well, clearly a check. And our opponent goes small, and again, much as the same in the last hand, I can't see any reason to do anything but call.
Yeah.
Our opponent's going to be doing a little bit better than we are, for sure.
Yep.
Turns a king, and we check, and our opponent checks behind. So maybe just a quick note on whether we would... I mean, I'm pretty sure, especially with the Jack of Hearts, we'd just be check calling here, especially when he has such a strong ace-king advantage.
Yeah, definitely.
But, Jack of Hearts makes that a lot easier. Is there any frequency we would check raise his hand? Probably not, right?
No, I don't think so. I think I would just check call and just check call. Check call down.
Yeah, I don't think that, I mean, when you check raise and he calls and then you jam, we're pretty much not going to get called.
Exactly, yeah.
So just wanted to mention that very quickly. Ace of Hearts. Okay, so when our opponent checks back, do you ever expect him to check back Ace King?
No.
I mean, if he was going to check back Ace King, he'd want to have the Ace of Hearts, right? So
yeah, probably. But I mean, like Ace King just becomes such a pure barrel here, given that I'm going to have to defend like so much King Queen, King 10, Ace Queen, Ace 10. I'm going to have so many continues. It's very hard for me to kind of get to the turn with a hand that's going to always want to fold, because like I don't defend the flop that wide, apart from a hand like 4-5 suited, for example, which may well check raise the flop. So I just have like a lot of hands that need to continue the turn.
Okay. So we check and our opponent bets 17.
Yeah.
So yeah. Again, another spot where I'm not sure whether we're going to be raising or calling, but I'm just going to think about that for a little bit.
Sure.
So how do I feel about a hand as a call? Having the Jack of Hearts, I'm not sure how good that is, considering I expect him to do a bunch of barreling on a card that's good for him on the turn with heart draws as well. So I'm not really sure he's going to have many flushes. Ace X seems pretty likely. That seems like he's going to have a bunch of Ace X as 3-bets, especially in these games. And then he's going to, you know, always check the turn, I think, with like Ace 7, you know, stuff like that. And he's got a bunch of Ace X, you know, that doesn't, you know, Ace 5 through Ace 9, I suppose, as well. You'll know frequencies better than me, but he's going to have a bunch of those, right? And he's always going to do this with them, I would say. So I don't really like call very much because this, to me, seems like he's going to have a bunch of Ace X. So how do I feel about our hand as a bluff? Like having blockers to full houses, if he did decide to check back some strong full houses, some strong hands on the turn, even though it doesn't really make much sense to me. What kind of hands can we have? I think we, as I've learned on the last video, we don't have pocket jacks because we're pure full betting. Deuces we are going to have.
Check raise the flop quite a lot though.
You would check raise the flop quite a lot. Okay. Ace deuce, you might not check raise. Or
True. I probably would quite a lot, but I would have ace deuce sometimes for sure.
We don't have pocket kings.
Nope.
So I'm a bit concerned about using our hand as a bluff when if we're going to like, and I assume if we're going to raise, we're probably going to go all in. I'm a bit concerned that we don't have very many houses. Now, it just becomes a matter of whether we want to jam our flushes here, which I think against his range we're probably going to want to do because a lot of his boats are going to want to, you know, bet the turn. So I feel like this is a pretty good hand to use based on purely blocking his very, very best hands. But we're going to need to have some other hands than, because I don't feel like we have a lot of boats here other than maybe ace deuce. So we're going to have to do this with flushes to be able to bluff here with this hand. Now, I'm going to let you talk.
I mean, I think you were saying that you think he bets Jack X of hearts on the turn quite a lot. I actually think he checks quite a lot with Jack X of hearts, particularly.
I think I said that I expect him to bet flush draws on the turn a bunch, but I may have said that.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, okay. Well, I think he bets Jack X of hearts a lot on the turn. I think that, so our Jack of hearts, no, sorry, he doesn't bet Jack of hearts. So like, I think our Jack of hearts is actually quite a relevant blocker. I think, thinking about bottom of value range that we want to shove, bearing in mind that we can't have like 7-8 of hearts, for example. So all of our flushes are literally like had to be either pair and flush draw on the flop or queen 10 of hearts, exactly. Yeah. So it can't be any other of those. So that's quite a narrow range of hands already.
10-9 of hearts, you're not floating against this very small size?
No, I wouldn't. I think it's just too weak. I think if the jack was a heart, maybe you can get away with it, but probably still then no.
You also have queen jack of hearts, right?
Yeah, queen jack of hearts as well. So I think having the jack of hearts is really, really good.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To your next point about blocking boats, we don't have any. Our king and our jack do a terrible job of blocking boats.
Okay.
But they do an okay job of blocking, ace king and ace jack that maybe would check the back turn occasionally. So it's less about like whether the boats that we can rep and more about just having some raw blockers to some of his value that he may well end up checking at some point in the hand.
So Jack,
and obviously
Jack
the Jack of Hearts as well.
Yeah. So Jack of Hearts becomes very, very good. Because like I said, if he's not going to have a lot of strong boats, he's going to have a bunch of, you know, weaker ace X looking for value, or, you know, flushes that we block. Yeah.
And like pretty much the number one hand he's going to have to bet call here is going to be like ace 10 with the 10 of hearts. And if he wants to start bet calling ace 7 offsuit here with no heart or something like that, then good luck, because getting crushed in that situation. It's just a really unfortunate spot for him to find himself in with my blockers.
I feel like I definitely don't like a call. I know that much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think calling's that bad, just because we block the board so heavily.
Yeah, I agree.
But...
I think call's pretty good.
I agree.
I prefer jam. I prefer jam. Yeah, I prefer jam for sure. But calling, only in the sense that I prefer jam. I don't like call.
Sure.
But just because I think it's going to generate more EV. But,
cool.
Using fancy words now, guys. We do get the fold. Oh shit! I mean, I think you can get. Sorry, I mean this is what I'm talking about, randomly clicking. But I think you can get from my tone that I was going with no punt here.
Yeah, I did. I'm glad.
I can't say you know, I prefer jam to call here and then say, oh, this is a huge punt. So I obviously would have said that before seeing the result, but as played, we do get the fold. And I think that I very much like having the Jack of Hearts. I very much like having the occasional, like you said, very good full house blockers. I do think that we credibly rep some good flushes here. Not a huge amount, but obviously we're not going to be doing this very often, you know, because we're going to want to have the Jack of Hearts and maybe a pair as well. And there's really not that many of those hands. So even though we're jamming a very, very narrow range, which this fits into quite nicely, I think.
I also just wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah.
We have ace jack here. That is we actually do have a boat here quite a lot. Ace jack.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, we do have ace jack for sure. So and ace deuce sometimes.
Yeah.
So
cool.
We've got some good flushes. We've got some boats. Our opponent doesn't have, you know, that many boats. He's going to have a lot of thin value. He's not going to have a lot of flushes when we have a Jack of Hearts. No punt, Ben.
Awesome. 2-1.
2-1 to Ben. Now we're obviously only need one more hand to win, and there's 2 left. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, but I'm looking forward to these next 2.
Perfect. Let's see what happens moving into hand number 4. Right, we're moving into hand 4 with a very apprehensive Ben. How are you feeling, Ben?
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not you think this one is more of a no punt or punt compared to the last one.
Right, let's have a look. So we're in the hijack. I think we can definitely open. We're making it 2.4 and big blind defends. Nothing to say.
So this person is a 26, 20, 16 recreational.
Right, some aggressive 3-betting. How many sample? What's the sample we have?
321 hands.
Okay, it's a pretty decent sample for that 3-bet percentage. Now, I feel like our hand serves pretty well as a check, but we maybe want to deny some equity for some overcards. I think having the 8 of clubs is leaning me slightly towards check, but I certainly don't mind a bet to deny from like Queen Jack of diamonds. What do you think?
Yeah, fine. I want to bet sometimes against recreational here. To be honest with you, my default would just be to bet range for small on every single texture against recreationals who are proper recreationals, but this one didn't seem super it seemed a bit more sticky, so I decided not to bet.
And you know, obviously betting has some value in the fact that we're going to get some value from like 6s and 5s at the 6x and 5x that the big blind's going to have a bunch that can't fold to a bet. But as played we do check, which I think is very reasonable. He checks the turn, and now obviously this card is going to be far better for you than him, especially when we check back flop. Any considerations here when deciding what to do?
I mean, I would bluff it a lot, but again, kind of playing the face-up strategy that I said I played before against Rex, I would just check 8s and then bet like, I don't know, Jack 9 or whatever.
Yeah, so I think that check is good here. You know, we don't necessarily need to deny much equity. Like we're still like Queen Jack of diamonds is probably going to 3-bet a bunch anyway. But I think something like Queen Jack offsuit, it makes sense to bet against. But I think against everything that he has, I think we're still happy to check.
Sure.
And you do check. River's the 8 of spades. That's a good card. And our opponent leads, and I think we have an obviously very clear raise. He could even be betting something like 10-9 now, which would definitely check flop and turn, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that seems reasonable. Like, can't see why you couldn't get value with that. Do you disagree with me?
No, definitely agree.
So, yeah, I mean, there's no real point talking about that because obviously we have a very, very clear raise. In terms of sizing, you know, I'd like to go fairly big. But what do you think?
Yeah, fairly big as well. Trying to just extract the max from 2 pair, something like that.
From a guy that's doing a lot of splashing about.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, very, very big. Raise from Ben, over 5 times the bet. And our opponent jams. Okay. So let's think about this. I mean, this is rough. Check, and then 3-bet jam. And I mean, obviously he's representing. I mean, is he ever? I mean, whenever I'm dealing with a spot like this, I guess I like to think about what if we can beat any value, and when I can beat value, I'm probably going to go ahead and call. Now, for us to be beating value here, our opponent has to have been check raising, I think, flop with 6s or 5s, seeing the ace and thinking he'll represent that a lot and going for another, maybe a check raise with 6s and 5s. Would he then 3-bet jam this river with 6s and 5s?
You tell me.
I'm not sure. So I'm not certain that we beat value. Now, what is he representing? I guess 9-7, that was checking flop always, that was checking turn because the ace is not a good card for him to bet, and then backed into a straight.
And 7-4.
And 7-4, but you know, he might even have 9-7 off and not 7-4 off.
I think that's actually quite a fair point.
Being this laggy.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So,
well, he's not that laggy. That's point 26-20.
No. But he might have at least at some frequency 9-7 off more than 7-4 off. But he does have some 7-4s as well. So he has a bunch of straights. Especially when I think he's going to be like, what is he going to bluff with here? I mean, if he's going to be this aggressive, like pre-flop and stuff, generally that's going to extrapolate into being quite aggressive post. Is he thinking that you're never ever going to get here with aces and tens? You're probably not, right? So
no, never.
So like he's thinking you're going to be capped, which you probably are, to pocket eights specifically. Do you have? You don't have 9-7 because you probably do. You probably don't raise that pre, and you probably don't.
Is someone going to try and make you fold pocket eights?
No, but you know he's not. He's thinking that's the best hand you can have.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So you know he knows that when he jams here, he's not getting snapped because you can't really have 9-7, and you can't really have tens and aces that are going to have to call. So, you know, the best hand you can have here is eights. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's just a matter of whether he knows that and whether I mean, if he's going to have a hand, he's going to want to maybe bluff. He's going to probably something like 9-8 seems pretty good. If he's going to call, if he's going to
blocking 3-8s is not great for that one.
Yeah. So it's
unlikely he's got 9-8 when we got 3 of them.
Exactly. So, but do you think that having 9-8 here would be a fair bluff from him blocking your best hand?
I guess so. Yeah, I think I just want to say, like, I know this puts me in the bin a little bit, but like, this player's not going to be thinking on that level.
Right.
So I'm inviting you to kind of make the verdict based on the fact that I'm playing a recreational who probably isn't really thinking all that much.
Okay. I really can't. I mean, look, if I'm in this spot in my stakes, I do generally think that I'm not going to be winning much.
Sure.
I think he wouldn't do anything differently with 9-7.
Yeah.
And he has a bunch of that. Is there anything else he wants to jam for value? Like I said, if he ever has 6s and 5s, I think we need to call. And maybe he thinks because you don't have aces and 10s that, you know, the only real hand he's losing to here is pocket 8s if he has 6s and 5s. And I think he would probably he could definitely do this sometimes with pocket 5s and pocket 6s. Like, not necessarily the river shove, but the turn check.
Yeah. It's the 3-bet river shove though, isn't it?
Yeah, the 3-bet river shove is something that we're not sure that excludes those hands. And I think it probably does because of your sizing.
Sure.
So punt or no punt, man. Like, I guess we call. Fucking hell, punt or no punt. Man, this is so close.
Well, I guess what you should do is you should decide whether or not calling is a punt and folding is a no punt, or the other way around, and then depending on what I do.
Yeah.
That could be the verdict.
I've seen you call, and I assumed you did because I guess it's in here. Like, I don't really. Yeah, I guess punting is generally like kicking your chips in the middle, so I expected a call from the format, I suppose. So I'm sorry I clicked, and I've already seen it, so there's no going back now.
Okay.
But I can't imagine being at the very top of our range could be a punt.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
We are at the very top, so
yeah, I know.
If we fold here, we always fold.
Yeah.
And does that not mean that our opponent can always do this and print?
Yeah, I think that, yes, that is true. I guess that what I look at here is like, if I was seeing this hand fresh and it wasn't my hand, I'd be like, recreational, not thinking on that level. Can they have bluffs? They have nuts. Hand over. That's kind of like what I look at now, looking at it back.
Yeah. So we need to
I think it's a punt personally, but you're the verdict maker, not me.
That's influencing, man. You can't influence the decision maker. Yeah, I can see why you would say it was a punt. I'm just like, so what it really boils down to is we're at the top of our range, which usually is a good idea to call off with.
Yeah.
But is our opponent ever bluffing when we make it this size on the river? probably not like ever. If he ever is, we probably need to call.
Sure.
Is
Yeah.
he
That's
ever?
fair.
Is he ever? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I think he just has 9-7, but I think this is really, 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 really close. But I think I'm going to go with the top of the range being a no punt because I'm very concerned about
Sick.
always having to fold here. So I'm going to go with no punt because that is, and I'm going to go with no punt for that reason. Exactly.
Sure.
Because yeah, if he ever knows that we're folding pocket eights here, we're fucked.
Okay. Yeah, that's
but
understandable.
even if he's not thinking at that level, that's obviously something we have to consider. And I think that I would probably say at micros we're punting, but I want to be able to. I want to live in a world where we can call here, so I'm going to say no punt.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think it's a punt.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm the host, which means you actually can't lose. Which is
Okay, great.
Which is probably for the best from what I've heard you talk about this last hand.
This last hand, yeah, it's okay.
So with Ben is 3-1 up, and yeah, we're interested to see what you guys think. Obviously, love to hear your own scores about Ben's hands in the comments. But I'm going with no punt, and I think I've explained enough why I think that.
Yeah.
But I can definitely understand why you think this is a punt. And we are shown the nines. I mean, I didn't even see it, but we're shown the 9-7. And having an offsuit, obviously, all those combos, this makes him very, very value heavy on this river. But
yeah,
a super close one, I think. But I think we maybe slightly disagree here. And I think a fold is reasonable, but in a theory sense, very concerning. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Right. We're on to the last hand, guys, and this is a doozy, supposedly. I haven't seen it. Let's go and take it. So we're moving into our last hand now. Ben has controversially already won based on my decision in the last hand. Now, a lot of people may disagree, and Ben disagrees, but that's fine. That's what, poker's about, having different opinions a lot of the time. A lot of the time it's not, but on this occasion, we decided to go different ways with it, but I think it's fair. This hand, however, Ben has built up quite a lot. So I'm going to be disappointed if it's not barbaric in many ways.
It's barbaric in multiple ways.
So, let's have a look. It may not be a punt, but from what I've heard, it potentially could be.
I guess.
Button opens.
Yeah.
Small
So this is the
folds.
same reg from the King Jack hand that I bluffed the river on the Ace Jack X King Ace.
Okay. We defend, which is, I think, always happening.
You defend, yeah.
Ace, deuce, deuce. We check, and our opponent goes small.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I'd rather have 3-5 of spades if we're going to check raise. Obviously, we're going to have a bunch of check raises against this sizing. What do I think about this combo? I'm not in love with it. Am I in love with the call? I think we do have to call at least with this bet size to bang off the 4. What do you think about check raise here with this particular combo?
I think we have to continue. We definitely have to either call. And I think raising is better with the spades and the hearts for sure. But I do block 5 deuce suited and 3 deuce suited, which is something.
Okay. So you do check raise on this occasion. Very small. Any notes on that sizing?
Yeah, so Pio likes check raising smaller on paired boards than on like more dynamic textures because relative hand strength on the turn doesn't change a great deal.
Okay.
So like any card on the turn, pretty much, apart from an ace or a heart, hand strength trips are still the nuts. Whereas like on 9-8, 4, and then like any dynamic card on turn, it completely changes the strength of people's hands.
Okay. Yeah. So we do go for the raise and he calls. Now, he's probably going to be doing that a whole bunch. Do you think he's ever going to want a 3-bet versus size?
That's a good question, actually. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Probably not that much, but some, I would say, given that I've raised so small.
Okay. But as play, he does call. Mm-hmm. So that you were talking about 5 deuce and 3 deuce blockers are now a bit more relevant.
Well, I always want a disclaimer. They're only relevant in the fact that like I can have them, whereas the villain doesn't open those hands, so it's not like I'm blocking their value all that much.
Are you very? I mean, obviously the button's going to open a bunch of ace X, and if we decide to start blasting here, and he's going to have like countless ace-x here.
Yeah.
With this action. We don't start blasting. Okay.
No.
We check, and our opponent, our opponent bets one big blind. What is this?
Yeah.
Misclick?
Well, I guess that this villain's allowed to bet here. Well, I'll just say it. Villain's obviously allowed to bet here extremely high frequency because they have an abundance of ace-x.
Yeah.
Now deuce-x is extremely discounted, even more so. Button has way more deuce-x than us now because they've got, well, sorry, that's not necessarily true. When we have 3-5 of diamonds, they have more deuce-x than us, if that makes sense. Because if we have like king 3 of diamonds, we would actually block like one king deuce of diamonds. So the betting sizing, or the betting frequency, should I say, is going to be allowed to be very high because this kind of shifts the dynamic back in the button's favor. Maybe it was already in the button's favor on the flop. But the one big blind bet is suspicious to me and looks like a kind of, if I'm being honest, it's like more of like this looks like an exploit size. Like, why not just bet like 2 big blinds or 3 big blinds, like a normal size?
Yeah.
One big blind seems a little bit weird to me.
Okay. Yeah, one big blind seems very strange. We go for the raise. Now, I mean, it's really hard.
Check raise.
Yeah, really hard to like. I mean, obviously you're representing an ace, and you can have a bunch, and you can have a bunch of deuces.
Yeah.
So, are your thoughts here that you can? I mean, I don't assume you can get him to fold an ace. So, what do you think he's bet folding here, or is he bet calling here? I don't know if he bet calls with something that isn't an ace.
I think so. Yeah, I think some pocket tens, those kind of hands.
Okay.
But I have to call. What they bet one big blind? Like, I'm quite incentivized to start bluffing again, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, this hand is a 1 in a billion hand, so who knows?
Okay. Well, I think I like. I mean, how can you fold right to one big blind? But you probably have to.
I should. Well, definitely I could fold. I can't. Yeah. I can't call. I should raise or fold. Probably fold.
Yeah. But we're getting 13 like to 1.
The 0.00001% game tree here.
Right. Our opponent calls. So, do I like the raise on the turn? I mean, like, I don't think so. I'm very concerned of him having a lot of ace-x when he.
Understandably.
Yeah. And obviously we're never getting him to fold that. Does he call here with? You're saying he calls with like tens? I mean, I don't know. I think that this.
I don't know either.
I think that I don't mind check raise on flop, but I'd rather have spades obviously in hearts. I don't mind that. I think the turn we should check fold.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you.
We bang off a full house, and obviously we don't beat anything still.
No.
Now,
I'm glad you said that. Because I agree. I don't think my improvement is significant.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't hard to improve. Literally any card would have improved us. It wasn't. So apart from a 4.
Legit.
Well, even a 4 would have improved us even as well. So yeah, this is like a
improvement.
A nothing card. Like, he's not now suddenly going to pay off a bet with a flush, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to call turn with a flush draw. How can he?
I guess I want to ask you here, my question to you is, if you are in this spot and you're playing someone who is presumed a competent reg, and clearly, by the way I play this hand, I'm far from competent, but you're playing someone you kind of maybe think are quite good. They then check raise the flop, they then check raise versus your block bet on the turn, or your one big blind bet, and then they shove the river.
Yeah.
What do you do with any ace here?
I mean, surely you just have to. I mean, if you're folding an ace, you're only calling with a deuce.
But it kind of goes back to our last hand, the pocket 8. Like, just pure. It's like one of those spots that, like, can anyone have ever a worse hand? Like, yes or no, I guess.
I mean, you obviously do. But I mean, if he knows you're a competent reg, you're obviously going to try to have some bluffs here. It's just whether this makes any sense. We're all in, which is the only sizing we can really use, I imagine.
Yeah.
Nothing else makes any sense, to be honest. We're going to jam ace-x. We're going to jam a deuce, and then
I'm actually not going to jam ace-x, though. I think it's too thin. I know that seems mental, right, but like, I've check raised the flop, I've check raised the flop, check raised the turn. Like, I can't really just have a single ace here, right?
So
He's got a ton of deuce X in the big on the button.
So are you telling me that you're trying to get him to fold an ace? Okay, well, that's very optimistic, I think. But like,
Yeah.
do you think then his decision becomes a mix with an ace? Probably, right?
I'm just thinking if I'm in the button shoes, I'm laughing at the big blind at how obvious it is that they've got a deuce, and then I just fold.
Yeah, right. But like,
But I haven't got a deuce.
but he knows you, so like, it's not like you're
Yeah,
that.
well,
Like,
it's just the ultimate whale level from me that's absolutely awful.
So yeah, I so if we're gonna want to do this, we want to block. I mean, it's so hard to block any relevant amount of ace X because he has so fucking much of it. So it's like really just like doesn't matter. What really matters is what. Yeah, but he has every single ace X under the sun. So what does it matter? Unless we think he would bet bigger on the turn with any of them, but I mean, we don't know that. So
yeah,
having a 5 and a 3 seems as good as any. They don't seem super relevant, but they don't seem super irrelevant any more than any other combo would. We're mostly just using the fact that we're in the big blind having a lot of deuces, even though he has some as well. We're mostly using the fact that we have a lot of deuces too. I mean, I don't open ace deuce from the button, so
yeah, I don't either.
But you defend ace deuce, so you do have a couple more, I think.
I won't defend ace deuce offsuit.
Right. So there's only one combo.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're coming around to the fact that this hand is just
fucking disastrous.
Completely disastrous. But like, I needed to post one hand that contested. Was it Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I needed to contest his punt or no punt.
I mean, this is going to make Steve feel a lot better.
Good. I'm glad.
I think. I mean, we have to have a bluff, right? If we're ever going to have a deuce. Okay, so does this make sense as a bluff?
Well, the point is that like I can't check raise the flop with a hand like more relevant blockers, like a hand like King Queen of Diamonds, because like they just make terrible check raises on the flop.
Yeah.
So the only hands that I can possibly check raise the flop are going to be the low deuce X blockers, which I've kind of got myself into like some absolute like mess here by the river. But like I figured that I can't really check raise the flop with 6-7 of diamonds, and he doesn't open those. So the only relevant deuce X blockers that I can have are high cards. So I just decided to go for the ones with the low blockers, which I can have that he can't.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to bluff because you're going to be able to value bet a bunch. So, you know, in the fact that we need to have a bluff.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, let's explore what kind of bluffs we want. Do we really want to do this? Like, probably not.
Well, I'm interested to hear your verdict, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm going to go with punt.
Okay, you said no punt there. This you would lose all your punts.
Yeah, we're going with punt, and I'm just thinking about it again, but like he's just gonna have an ace like all the fucking time. So, you know, I think it doesn't matter as much like that we can have a deuce. Like if the ace wasn't an ace, if it was like a 10.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify. So what you're saying is that he can only arrive here with an ace, so he's going to have an ace on the river.
No, I'm not saying he only arrived here with an ace. I'm just saying he's
what else can he arrive with?
Well, you said pocket tens.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah,
which will fold, hopefully. But you know, I just think that the ace specifically, with regards to if it was any other card, I think he's going to have like a bunch less top boats. The ace specifically, because he's opening, like if you look at at least my ranges, he's opening all ace X suited and then all the way down to ace 4 off. That's shitloads of aces. So on this specific card, he has more boats on an ace high board than he does on any other card.
Yeah, that's true.
Which means we can bluff less, which means 5-3 diamonds is a worldie of a punt.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What are the results?
Fair enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Ignore the results.
No, we can look at the results.
I thought you said ignore. Oh, fuck!
It ain't spew if it gets through.
Oh my god, we actually do get it through. Do you think he folded an ace?
I think he did. Yeah, he can't fold the river.
That is absolutely heroic. I mean,
who knows? Maybe not. We'll see. I could ask them. Yeah, hopefully we'll find out.
That would be awesome if you're in the comments, Mr. Villain 6. We'd love to know.
I can tell you who it is. It's Brick P63.
Okay. I mean, I don't know who that is, but let us know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure Ben will try and fish it out of you and point you in the direction of how, I mean, how results owned you got here. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Ben, we're off on a bit of a tangent here, mate.
Cool.
So you won 3-2, but I think the only one that we're up in the air about is the pocket eights. I think the rest of them we agree,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
But obviously, yeah, this one is way out there and a lot of fun to review. What we're going to do now is we're going to sum up the scores and do a little bit of a conclusion, and we'll see there. So guys, that was Punt or No Punt 500 Zoom edition. I really hope you had a good time watching these hands. I certainly had a lot of fun reviewing them. Sorry if the analysis was a little bit stunted in some places. I hadn't seen any of these hands before, and I'm trying really hard to offer some decent level of analysis, obviously with Ben here and a lot of people interested in this kind of footage. So thanks for bearing with me on that. Next week, guys, we have another special edition of Punt or No Punt. My hands are going into the mix, and the guest host is none other than Ben Raven, BenaBadBeat. Are you looking forward to that, mate?
I'm hoping there are going to be some absolute like whale off in this one,
Mate,
for the edition.
If I go 05, that would be like very reasonable. From what I mean, I have selected from a large database, and I'm bringing some absolute weaponry to this video. So, last thing to say, mate, thank you so much again for doing this video with me. I really, really appreciate it. Next week, like I said, my punts. Tear us to shreds in the comments, either me for my analysis or Ben for his ridiculous plays. But for the most part, I think we're bang on. We disagree mainly on one hand. So let us know what you think. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Do subscribe and like if you enjoyed the content, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Take care.